Dickman here.
Grillo here.
Gavich here.
Speedy here.
Guzikowski here.
Correll.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Welcome to our audience. Welcome to those folks watching on a live stream. Item 2 is minutes of the August 9th, 2016 meeting. Need a motion.
Dickman makes a motion, we approve the minutes of the August 9th, 2016 meeting.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Speedy, aye.
Guzikowski, aye. Kroll abstains.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Item 3 is significant common council actions. Pete.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last Common Council meeting, the council received an update on the Phase 1 of the Emerald Road development presented by Rick Barrett of Barrett Visionary. Also, the council approved a strategic planning services agreement with the Novak Consulting Group. They approved awarding the Lake Vista Community Park, Playground, and Bluff Trail contract to the lowest responsible bidder, who was Edgerton Contractors, at the estimated cost of $4,068,092.28. They also approved awarding the Lake Vista Community Park architectural structure contract to Rash Construction and Engineering for the lump sum cost of $1,784,000. They also approved resolution number 11729081616, approving a certified survey map for the properties at 6304 and 6340 South Howell Avenue and 137, 147, and 209 East College Avenue. They also, lastly, they held resolution number 11730081616, vacating and discontinuing a part of a public street in the city of Oak Creek until after the required public hearing scheduled for October 4th, 2016.
Any questions? All right, moving on to new business. Item 4 is a plan review of site building landscaping plans submitted by Rick Reuven, R.W. Howell LLC, for an addition to the existing building on the property at 8355, 8375 South Howell Avenue. Tax key number 828-9997. Pete.
All right. The applicant is requesting a site building and landscaping plan approval for a 3,503 square foot single-story addition to the south side of the existing building located at 8355 South Howell Avenue. They do have some medical clinics. Oak Creek Pediatrics is where the expansion will be occurring. They will be expanding on the south side for more hospital space, which this addition does meet the required setbacks and also the architectural standards. They will be using architectural CMU and windows. They will be matching the existing building. And also they're proposing a second story staircase for egress purposes for the roof. And that'll be constructed of metal tile. This is an accent material. However, we always like to let the Plan Commission know that a 3/4 majority is always required when the architectural standards don't meet our, the materials don't meet our standards. Also, when it comes to the parking of this development, the expanded parking will result in a total of 105 stalls being provided. This does meet the standards for this type of use on this property. Also, as a result of this addition, the trash enclosure will need to be relocated to the southwest corner of the parking lot. It'll have, the exterior will match the building as well as have cedar gates for it, which meets our code. And then last of all, the landscaping. Not much is going to be changed. However, there will be additional landscaping around the perimeter of the addition, which does also meet our landscape standards. Having said all of that, staff recommends that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Rick Reuven, R.W. Howell LLC, for the addition to the existing building located at 8355 South Howell Avenue, subject to conditions 1 through 6. Mr. Mayor.
Is the applicant or a representative of the applicant here? Also open it up to questions or comments from the commission. Commissioner Chandler.
I have a question for the applicant.
Name and address for the record.
Greg Prosson with the Consortium AE, we're the architectural engineering firm, 2022 East North Avenue, Suite 300, which is why I raised my hand if you asked about Blair, because we share an office together.
Oh, cool.
In regards to the stairs, can you give a little more information about the second story stairs?
The addition is on the south side of the building and runs the entire depth of the building. There's an egress stair right in the center of that side. We've had to move that egress stair towards the front of the addition in order to accommodate egress from the second floor. So basically from that first floor level up to the height of that stair tower, which is just a couple feet shorter than the height of the building, it has an architectural metal tile wrapping the three sides that are exposed. And the tile is, it's made by Millennium Forms in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. It's a stainless steel panel, basically.
So is that material acceptable?
Not as a primary material, but as an accent material. And if you look at the overall architecture of the building, this does not meet the primary. However, we always do encourage, the Plan Commission to consider when materials that don't meet our standards, that they do take a look and ask questions about it.
Thank you.
Other questions? I'll go to Alderman Bekavich.
I'm going to stick to the staircase. The egress, do you have rooftop units, exhaust fans? I mean, obviously you have to access the roof, but I'm surprised you can't do it through a scuttle and then not need the screening if you got a parapet wall.
The screening is actually behind the stairs, so the screen is two-sided for the new rooftop unit on the single-story addition.
Oh, okay, so it's hiding the rooftop.
Correct.
Just kind of sticks out, that's all.
The screen?
The screening, it just doesn't seem to flow well with the building.
I'm not sure you'll even see it because this building is set so far back from Howell.
Oh, you're correct about that. You're correct about that. It's a handsome looking building. See the tile go on there. It just doesn't seem to have a place.
Mr. Dickman?
According to what we have here, it shows that you're going to be removing some existing pavement on one end of the building and an existing light pole and some concrete pavement that's going to be removed. But in the drawing, it shows, I don't know if it's just two spaces, parking spaces on the one end that are being removed, or are all those parking spaces being removed?
It's all those spaces on that end of the building.
Okay, I guess then, Pete, does that affect the number of spaces that they need for parking?
No, what they need is, let me grab my report out here. Based on their use, what the applicants submitted, that they would need a total of 88 stalls would be required. Following even this addition, there still be 105 stalls that'll be available, so that they do meet.
They do still need.
Yeah, even removing those stalls, they'll be well within our parking requirements.
That paved area, which they're going to take out though, was that just so cars could back up in there or what?
That paved area, there are some spaces in that, but right now that is the location of the dumpster
Okay, it's for the
that we're
dumpster.
moving into the southwest
And you're
corner.
going to move it. Okay, thank you.
If you know, if approved, what's the timeline for this?
We're actually at the state right now for state plan review, so it would start first of next month.
Nice looking building. Any idea of the traffic that goes in and out of that building every day?
It's going to remain pretty much unchanged from what it is right now. They're adding, I believe, 6 more doctors, but they're not all in the building at the same time.
Any other questions? All right, motion on 4A.
Gavich will make a motion that the Plan Commission approve the site and building plans submitted by Rick Reuven, I hope I said that correctly, R.W. Howell LLC for the addition to the existing building located at 8355 South Howell Avenue, subject to the following conditions. 1, that all building and fire codes are met. 2, that all revised plans, site, building, landscape, lighting, details, etc. are submitted in digital and paper formats for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications. 3, that all mechanical equipment, ground, building, and rooftop is screened from view. 4, that the final site, grading, drainage, and stormwater management plans are approved by the engineering department. 5, that all water and sewer utility connections are coordinated with the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility. And 6, that the final photometric and lighting plan is approved by the electrical inspector prior to the issuance of building permits.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Rutherford, aye.
Bekavich, aye.
BDI.
Guzekowski, aye. Crawley.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Good luck.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Commissioners.
You're welcome. All right, moving on, we've got 4 sign plan reviews. The first one is 4B. It's a review of a proposed sign plan submitted by Blair Williams Wired Properties for the commercial portions of the mixed-use buildings at 7979 South Main Street and 7978 South Main Street. Tax key numbers as listed. Pete.
All right, thank you. And I'll apologize right in the beginning for the commissioner who makes the recommendation for approval, since we have conditions 1 through 9. Having said that, if you recall back in July, the Plan Commission was presented with a tenant sign plan that was an example that was used in the Mequon Town Square. And just to give an idea of what we could do when dealing with tenant sign spaces in our downtown area. And so the applicant has modified the document to apply to Main Street, and so that's what is here before you tonight for your review. Overall, the sign plan doesn't mirror our Drexel Town Square's zoning code. However, we've been working with the applicant quite a bit to try to get as much being the same. I lack of words here, mirror. But however, there are some discrepancies, and I'm going to go over those discrepancies and how we're going to deal with that if this plan is approved as proposed. The first section I want to bring to your attention is subsections 1A through C. It talks about the main signs that you can have, one on entry facade, but also they want to talk about having signs on the non-entry facades, and specifically talking ones that face either the north, the private alleyway, or that pedestrian walkway. Well, that doesn't jive with our DTS plan. So we recommend that we add an additional statement that basically says any variance from the Drexel Town Square will require a sign variance in order to, have a second sign. So we're providing that outlet in the sign plan. We like to do that so we can, as we talked about with the earlier sign plan from the last meeting, we try to have it where this document becomes the go-to one and not have to flip between the Drexel Town Square plan, flip through the sign plan, see which ones are working, which ones are in opposition. So that's our recommendation there. Next section is 4G. That talks about taller signs than are what allowed. If you recall, back when we were drafting the zoning code, signage was a big concern. And one of the things that, working with the developer, working with Grafe, working with everyone, we came up with this specific design that the height of the building of the commercial retail area, no more than 15% of that height can be the height of the sign. When we calculate that out, that means the maximum sign height is 25.2 inches. The applicant is proposing to have either a 28-inch maximum or a 32-inch maximum. Staff's thought is, we put a lot of time into it. We would prefer to keep that 25-inch cap. However, again, include in here saying, however, if there are circumstances that present itself that maybe a taller sign would be allowed, no taller than the 28 inches or no taller than one letter being 32 inches will be considered. So again, we're fine with that, 28, 32 being in there, but that's only if a sign appeal is granted by the Plan Commission. And once again, that provides the commission to have that regulation control over signage on Main Street. Section 6 sub D, talking about window signs. There's kind of an interesting flux even within this document. If you look under there, they talk about hanging neon signs or service signs open. They talk about 50-inch of the window being limited. Well, in our code, we talk about window signs being no more than 10%. So we, again, have quite a variance of, what they think is okay and what the city has agreed to is okay. If you look further in the document, there's another one talking about vinyl clings can't be no more than 25%. Well, why can you have a neon sign at 50%? A window skin, I believe, is what the commercial sign people use at 25%. But then if you put a vinyl letter, it's only 10%. There's a little bit of inconsistency being within the document. Once again, we encourage that we stick with the 10% rule. Of course, with the caveat of a sign appeal. If someone has something that is suitable for that site and the commission believes it is suitable, then let's go for a sign appeal. So once again, we have more control over what is being presented. This leads us to subsection 10E. This is talking about vacant vinyl decals for tenant spaces. The idea is that, what would be alternatives? Soaped windows, newspapered windows, vinyl clings would be appropriate there. So we're okay with doing that for vacant tenants. For the next section is storefront signs or lettering. Subsection B, allow window signs that are larger than what is allowed. Once again, we're talking about that variance request that I mentioned earlier. Going on to blade signs, subsection A, talk about if it's not an entry facade, they're talking that they should be allowed. We say that it should go for, once again, a variance request and include that in the plan. So that way, when tenants come in, they get this document, they can follow the rules and know when they have to go for a variance. Miscellaneous signs, subsection B clarifies that the one thing they didn't include, which we have in our DTS, is that we allow A-frames to be out on the sidewalk every day. There's no need for a temporary sign permit. It's permitted in this area. We recommend including that in this document, just so that way it's all in one spot. Subsection G talks about temporary banner signage allowed for balcony railings. Staff is somewhat concerned with that idea, that they want to be able to have a for rent or for lease sign on a balcony on any of the elevations. Understanding that, there may be a time in the future where, occupancy may drop and that you want to be able to have that. Staff is actually, we're discussing it even today, which is under condition 9 in your report, talking about temporary sign code. And in fact, we would recommend that if the landlord needed to put for rent signs, he should actually come before the commission as for a temporary use permit that can talk about location, size, number, and then we can agree to a duration. So that way it's not just, well, I'm at only 98% occupancy. Technically, I do have rooms for, we don't have that battle of what is acceptable or not. So for condition 9, instead of talking about 15 days, 4 times per year for, 15 days, that we'd actually not use that, but actually recommend going for a temporary use permit before the plan commission.
We would decide how long.
Right. You and the applicant, the applicant may say, I want it for 12 months, and you may say, well, that's a little long. Let's shoot for between these dates, and then we'll come back and visit it again. So that's what staff is proposing for the lease signs. Otherwise, what they're proposing, the city, staff is comfortable with. If the commission is comfortable with it, there is a long list of conditions, but basically everything that I've said so far is what the conditions spell out. My understanding, the applicant was not necessarily completely opposed. He might have some concerns. I don't know if there's a representative here tonight. I think Blair wasn't able to make it, but there wasn't any correspondence saying, we want certain things changed. So with that said, staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the sign program for the mixed-use buildings at 7979 and 7978 South Main Street with conditions 1 through 9.
So in your mind, all these 9 different conditions make the sign plan clear? Sign code
Yeah,
clear?
what it does, anytime that there is a discrepancy between the code and what they're proposing, we include a section saying an applicant always has the right to go for a variance to still fit within these parameters. So for that 32-inch, 28-inch height, that anybody would come for a variance, the most they could ever ask for is a 28-inch or a 32-inch tall sign. They couldn't come in for anything bigger because this plan says that. Even though it says it, you still need to come for an appeal.
So these 9 conditions were created. What caused you, other than, I guess the obvious answer is the applicants are looking for different kind of signage things, but so you're saying this is going to simplify our work?
Well, what's good, believe it or not, even with all the conditions that we have on here and the number of pages, this sign plan is going to help the sign company work with their client, because they're going to see this and they're going to understand, all right, these are the rules in the DTS. These are the rules in the sign plan. Anytime there's something in a sign plan that doesn't jive with the DTS, you have to go for a sign variance. I just want to be very clear, because right now we're having a lot of miscommunication with the landlord telling the client, their potential tenant, what they could do, and then goes to the sign company and it blows up because I'm there, crushing, applications, and then the city looks like a bad guy. If we can communicate this master plan to them, we'll have less confusion and less frustration working with the tenant in the city.
Just arguing the adversarial position, does this make it so arbitrary that it's really difficult for the Plan Commission to hear these variance requests because it's spelled out here, we really don't have as much power, or does it make it easier?
I think it would make it easier for the commission to be able to say that, say a tenant comes in and wants a 50-inch tall sign. No. Our rule is 25. We're willing to work with an applicant if it's 28 or 32 inches. So hopefully, in the future, these tenants are going to not try to go for the biggest thing they can do and hope that you guys like it. They know that their landlord is basically saying, don't go over 35 square feet, don't go over 28 inches, or if you go over 25 inches, you're going to have to go before the city to ask for permission.
So in your mind, there's never a case where, what do we say, you said 32 would be the maximum. There's never a case where a 50-inch would be allowable?
It'd be up to the plan committee. We would say no. Staff would deny it, but if it'd
But
make
you
it
might
easier.
consider a 28 or 32.
Right, it'd make the plan commission a little bit easier saying,
All right.
we'll agree 28, maybe a 32, but no more. There's no basis for granting larger.
Mr. Dickman.
Okay, I just want to make sure, Pete. Right now, we have what's called the Drexel Town Square Main Street tenant site sign criteria. What you're saying is you're going to, if we agree, you're going to take these changes and you're going to reissue this document with all those changes put in.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure we're talking.
Okay. Commissioner Carrillo.
Can we just review real quickly the signage that is on the glass? Like the skin, the vinyl lettering, so that I think, when we look at signage, we aren't really taking into consideration all the things that can go on the glass and how important that is, in the overall look. And so we're looking at, signage, down to the inches, but it can be, really, if we give them approval on the glass, it would take, you wouldn't even see those signs as much that, it can have a huge impact on it. So as far as skins, which would be kind of like a wrap, like they wrap the bus. So you usually can't see in, but you can see out. We have a percentage that we give them.
10%.
Okay, so
That's what we're recommending, that we stick with that.
10% of the overall glass for their area.
Yes.
Okay. And then the vinyl lettering,
And then they're only allowed to have one graphic, one eye-level sign graphic per 12 linear feet of entry facade. So, what is that, 48 foot, you get 4 signs, 4 vinyl clings. And those 4 vinyl skins cannot make up more than 10%.
okay, because like I drove in today and I saw Bel Air has, coming soon, their big logo in almost the entire window frame.
That's a temporary.
Right.
Yep.
But something like that, would that be, is that skin or is that the vinyl lettering or?
That would be a window skin, or it could be either one. I mean,
Right.
because it has lettering on it. So we're trying to keep it so we don't, we took such great care to make sure we had a minimum glazing. And the idea, and the Plan Commission thinks differently, please say so, but the idea was not to turn all that glass into potential signage. The idea was you'll be able to see in, you can see out, you have that energy, you see what's going on, and you see the bustle, you don't have everything shaded.
Right.
So, however, if they want to go above it, once again, it would be that sign appeal process. And in here, the plan says no more than 50 or 25%. So if they wanted to come to do the whole glass, the Plan Commission say, we approve this, that we only want 10%, but you know what, you have a very tasteful vinyl skin, but we can't go over 25%. That's what the master sign plan says, that, we may grant a variance, but we're not going to go any higher than 25%. So that's how this is written. So right now, 10% is the rule, but they can go in, they can get up to 25, or they want a neon sign for 50%. We're a little concerned with that number, but it's up to this commission to determine what that cap would be for any variance would be allowed.
Yeah,
Alderman Bekavich.
Pete, I understand you're trying to clarify this, make this easier, more customer friendly, so to speak. I just want to touch on a couple of conditions, make sure I'm understanding them. First of all, can we go to number 7, the subsection CC, the blade signs revised to clarify the requirement for fabric flags versus solid blade signs? Obviously, it's probably driven out of the issue we talked about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago with Pizza Man. So am I to understand that beyond what we approve for Pizza Man, from here on out, they're fabric?
No, that's just, if they are fabric, they need to meet those criteria, which is outlined in DTS. In DTS, if you, in the very, in your report, they talk about blade signs. And in there, they talk about what the dimensions need to be. And let's see here. And we just want to have the consistency. Trying to signage, visual interest.
Page 3 of 4.
And page 25, they talk about, they have the flag signs, horizontal, rigid, internal, external, and there's a, it's on page 27. It says, wall-mounted solid flag may not be greater than 36 inches in width or 36 inches in height. It may not be 8 feet from the ground. It may not project more than 4 feet from internal outermost facade. Now, if you look at above that, it says wall-mounted fabrics may not be 10 feet, greater than 10 feet in height and must maintain maintain a vertical proportion, may not extend 4 feet facade off 8 foot from ground. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the flag and the fabric signs are similar.
Okay. And then condition above it allows 1 to 2 blade signs per business?
Per entry facade. And so,
So every business along Main Street could possibly have a blade sign?
yes, and that's like, if you remember Pizza Man, they had 2 on their entry facade. And so they had the big Pizza Man, and then they had that,
Yeah.
that unique gooseneck kind of thing. So, the idea is that on entry facades, you can have 1 to 2. If you want to have it on a non-entry facade, you need to go for a variance. That's what that section is taught, that condition is saying. If you want to have a blade sign, you have, on a non-entry side, you need to go for a variance. That's what that condition will do. And that's the same thing for wall signs. They'll say, okay, if you want to have a wall sign on a non-entry side, and they actually specified on certain buildings that have either face that private service drive on the north or the pedestrian, that you would be allowed to have that with a sign appeal. Okay. If you recall, I guess, in the original code, there's a section on multi-tenants that say that, buildings that, corner tenants of multi-tenant buildings can have a second wall sign with plan commission review. That's basically what we're doing, but we're going to go through the sign appeal process.
Okay. And then lastly, more of a comment than a question. In condition 9, I'm kind of fully on board without the temporary for rent banners hanging all over every balcony that's on the building. I'm with you guys 100% on that.
All right, as written in your report, or
No, just as the general idea, we just don't need that hanging on every vacant studio apartment out there with a balcony.
right, and so, our first condition, we said, as for the temporary sign section, I would actually strike that and say in accordance with section 170204 as a temporary use. So that way, you're not allowed to 60 days, one sign for 60 days. The Plan commission would say, all right, do you want to put it on 3 sides of your building? Fine, do it for 3 months. And on these units, you can really specify the length, location, those key ideas with any time we have to deal with sign regulation is how long did they stay up there? How big are they? And where are they located? So we'd recommend going through the temporary use process more so than the temporary sign permit, because for 15 days, I can guarantee you those 4 permits will go up, burn through, and then they're going to come back and asking for more. So if we just say, go for a temporary use permit, give us your plan, then, we'll consider it that way.
Obviously, staff has vetted this out pretty well. I mean, you guys are knee-deep in this daily versus us who comes up here. So if you're comfortable with this, I'm good with it.
Ideally, we'd like to have it completely omitted. However, if you want to build that flexibility in, and that's pretty much the approach I've been taking tonight, is how can we best balance our regulations and somewhat flexibility of the potential tenant space. And this is how we work together with the applicant to do that.
In your mind, this does that?
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And just keep in mind, when we wrote all these conditions, we had no buildings. All we had was a blank slate vision of what was going to be. So obviously, we got to revise things as it becomes reality now.
Mr. Dickman?
I just want to, Dawn mentioned that she saw the sign coming in and was large in the window, and you said that's a temporary sign. Well, before the business opens and everything, are there different conditions that apply, or do these apply once the business opens?
Well, yes. In fact, that's what this master sign plan is doing, is that when you have an empty tenant space, a coming soon type sign, we would allow what Bel Air did as any other one. I believe you'll see the chocolate factory, if you've had a chance to go down, scoot down Main Street. I don't think it's open yet, but they want to put a picture of a sub and some ice cream. They're not open yet. Once they open, they take it down. But they just want to have something that catches someone's eye prior to them coming in. And so, as I mentioned before, these window clings and an empty tenant space, we would allow as a real estate type sign that has a little more length, so you don't have to have soaped up windows or newspapered windows or however, tenant spaces try to cover up the inside so it doesn't look like a shell of a building. So, there's discussion about putting maybe smiling families in these empty tenant spots. I guess it's very common downtown when you have empty tenant buildings, so that way you're not just staring into empty window. You're having some sort of a different type of experience as you go down Main Street. So we do treat them differently than we do if once Bel Air moves in. Those signs have to come down. They're going to have that 10% rule, so that their little, maybe their bull icon would be what you see on the glass, and that would be it. You wouldn't get all the other stuff.
I'm going to go right down the line. Alderman Guzekowski.
Pete, on the signs, it says, so these address these conditions address just these two subject properties. Wouldn't it apply to all of DTS?
No, that's just for the sign plan for this development. So when we go to the other buildings, they're going to have their sign plan. That's how, even in the code right now, the regular sign code, if you have a multi-tenant building, you have to submit a sign plan for the review. A good example would be the Meta property on Howell Avenue that we had, that 6 or 7 tenant building. They had to basically show us, what's our style, our location, number, and that's what we would do on any other multi-tenant building. But we wouldn't necessarily have these rules for like what would it not B5? B5 was a multi-tenant building, but one of the other C1, C2, the potential restaurant, they would have their own. They would comply strictly with the DTS zoning code. This is strictly for buildings 1 and 2 for Main Street.
Mr. Seabird.
Yeah, I had the question, did this apply to the whole Drexel Town Square? And I just heard that you limited to these 2 buildings. The other
Right.
question I have was on number 9 about the banners on the balcony. Some of those buildings are 3 stories high. Can some of these banners be at the 3rd story hanging, or is there a height limit when you can put those banners up?
Well, that's why staff is proposing doing a temporary use permit, similar to how any other temporary use permit we have reviewed, where we said, okay, where are you locating? What's the size? What's the number? Let's discuss what is your planning, so you don't find it on the 4th floor, in the 3rd floor. Do you limit 1 sign per elevation, or can you only have it on the Drexel side? That's where the temporary use review process would kick in, so you could help control where it is, the length of time, and the size. So, as proposed, they're basically asking for, they're up to two signs up to 32 square feet on any elevation of the building. We would strike, we wouldn't want that, and we would actually have it replaced with condition number 9 that says that, revised to eliminate the temporary banners on balcony, and that, we should have temporary banners affixed in accordance to the temporary section 170204 temporary use instead. So that way this group can talk about what it is that they want to see or what they think is appropriate for that development.
What about lighting these temporary signs? Is there anything dealing with that?
No, we don't have anything dealing with that. I don't think we really thought about someone illuminating it because it's on a balcony. So unless there's a light on the balcony, I don't see how they would illuminate it. But that's a good question. We didn't consider how or if they would want to illuminate that. I mean, when you're up how many stories, there's quite a bit already illumination in Drexel Town Square with all the street lights that I have a feeling that they're not going to need to put a spotlight on it. But as of right now, we're not address it. The way the city attorney has always told me, if we don't explicitly permit it, by default, it is not allowed.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh,
One more
Commissioner
quick question.
Curlow? Yep.
I'm assuming that the landlords will have something built into their rules and regulations that like the private person that's living there, like political signs, and because you could hang anything from a banner, or from the balcony, flags or whatever. Will that be built into their?
That would be something that they would have to do, part of their lease agreement. The city wouldn't have any authority if someone wanted to put any sort of Second Amendment free speech type.
Or a Bel Air, banner, or, it could be anything.
Well, when you're advertising a business or service, then we can have some control. But when it comes to free speech, then we have no control.
So a nice Miller Lite banner, your flag, those kind of things. I mean, I'm assuming that they have that considered.
I would hope that would be something that the landlord has taken into consideration on any tenant agreement. But yeah, we wouldn't have any sort of control over that.
Make a note to reach out to Blair and ask him that question. Thanks.
Definitely do that.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this? Yeah, any apartments with balconies in that development. I've got a sign headache. Anyone else have any other questions? All right, someone make a motion on this. Good luck.
Bukevich will make a motion that the Plan Commission approve the sign program for the mixed-use buildings at 7979 and 7978 South Main Street with the following conditions. 1, that subsections 1A through C under facade signs are revised to specify that the signs are allowed on entry facades per the DTS MUPDD. Tenants may pursue a variance through the sign appeal process for non-entry facade signs. 2, that subsection 4G under fascia signs is revised to allow a maximum wall height of 25.2 inches for all sign elements. 3, that subsection 6D under fascia signs is revised to comply with the DTS MUPDD for window signs. Tenants may pursue a variance through the sign appeal process for the proposed signs that do not meet the DTS MUPDD requirements. 4, that subsection 10E under fascia signs is revised to comply with the DTS MUPDD and be consistent with other sections of the sign criteria. Tenants may pursue a variance through the sign appeal process for the proposed permanent signs that do not meet the DTS MUPDD requirements. Temporary vinyl window decals for vacant tenant spaces that do not meet this standard may be reviewed and approved on a case-by-case by the Plan Commission. 5, that subsection B under storefront signs or lettering is revised to comply with the DTS MUPDD one text graphic pattern may not cause more than 10% of the glazing to become opaque, and the maximum text height is limited to 5% of the retail storefront. Tenants may pursue a variance through the sign appeal process for the proposed permanent signs that do not meet the DTS MUPDD requirement. Temporary vinyl window decals for vacant tenant spaces that do not meet this standard may be reviewed and approved on a case-by-case basis by the Plan Commission. 6, that subsection A under blade signs is revised to specify that 1 to 2 blade signs are allowed per entry facade per the DTS MUPDD. Tenants may pursue a variance through the sign appeal process for any non-entry facade sign. 7, that subsection C under the blade signs is revised to clarify the requirements for fabric flag signs versus solid blade signs in compliance with the DTS MUPDD. 8, that subsection B under miscellaneous signs is revised to clarify that A-frame signs are allowed and must be maintained in compliance with the DTS MUPDD. 9, that subsection G under miscellaneous signs is revised to eliminate the temporary banners on balcony railings. Should the Plan Commission determine that temporary banners affixed to the residential balconies are acceptable, temporary permits for such may be issued on a case-by-case basis in accordance with section 17.0709B sub 2.
Nice. Stop.
That
That,
changed.
yeah, that
didn't
changed
it?
to section 17.0204,
17.0204.
temporary use.
Okay, on a case-by-case basis in accordance with subsection 17.0204. Do you need to sub B2? No, okay. One temporary sign permit issued
Actually,
up to...
just eliminate that part. You don't have to say that part.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm
Press that,
done.
strike that.
Yeah, very good.
Earned my money there.
Okay, Steve, before I seconded, my hearing aid was turned off. I was wondering, Dan, could you repeat those for me once more? I'm
Oh, we are streaming. You can check that at home.
The chair will tell the jokes.
Okay, Dickman, second.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Gurlo, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Speedy, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Grill, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
All right, on to specific signs. This is a sign plan review of a proposed sign plan submitted by Brian Cass Martinizing for the Martinizing commercial tenant portion of the building at 7979 South Main Street, tax key number 813-9053. Pete.
All right. As the mayor said, the applicant is proposing to install one wall sign over the entry facade in accordance with the sign plan and the DTS MUPDD zoning district. The overall height of the sign is 17.6 inches, which complies with the 25.2 inch maximum. Overall, the sign will be 17.6 square feet in area, which also complies with the 35 square foot rule that was just recently approved. And just to give you a little background on the sign, as you see up on the screen, it will be your traditional channel letters. The one thing I just want to point out is the green cleaning part of the sign. One of the requirements in the zoning code is you can't have internally illuminated box signs. So we worked with the applicant, and what they're actually doing is they're creating a push-through channel letter where the green is not illuminated, just the white lettering is. So it's not the letters are illuminated, but not the whole box. So as a way we worked with the applicant, they could keep their brand, keep their look, but still stay in the spirit of the code. This is similar to what the Chocolate Factory submitted for their like Amazing Sundays and Subs, I believe. So precedent set, with the Chocolate Factory, staff is comfortable with what is being presented in compliance with the zoning code. Therefore, staff recommends the Plan Commission approve the sign plan for the Martinizing located at 7979 South Main Street.
All right, anybody have any questions? Mr. Chandler?
I have a question for the applicant.
Can you still step up to the mic
Podium?
and name and address for the record?
I'm Krista, and I'm with Sinorama. Neil.
Got cold?
Allergies. Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay, my question is in regards to the blue signage. Is that also going to be illuminated?
Yes.
Okay, and can you just give a little more information in regards to the illumination? 'Cause I didn't see anything in our packet.
Well, the channel letters are UL listed. They are individual channel letters, the blue letters, mounted to a raceway. The raceway is painted a dark brown to match the CMU block. And anyway, they're 5 inches deep with, white translucent faces. So the light can come through the white as well as the blue. The blue that you see on there is a translucent adhesive vinyl that is like inset from the overall outline. Therefore,
What does that mean?
it means that the blue vinyl that you see won't reach all the way out to the edges of each individual letter. Therefore, it maintains the branding, so that white stroke is around each letter. So the white that you're seeing is the polycarbonate or the Lexan, the translucent plastic, and the blue is a translucent skin or an adhesive vinyl. that's placed on the face of each letter.
What color?
It'll be there's a specific 3M color that Martinizing uses. I think it's Olympic blue. It's a 3M product.
Okay, thank you.
Is this sign displayed anywhere else in the market currently?
Yes. Yes, it is, but the style varies greatly all around southeast Wisconsin. A lot of Martinizings are not in such nice facilities as this. There's a lot of box signs and
Cool. Thanks for the compliment. Anybody else?
Just
Alderman Bekavich?
one question really doesn't pertain to your sign. It's more about services offered. Are you going to have tailoring here too?
you know, I believe so. I believe that is a part of what they do. I'll check on that to be certain. I'm not entirely familiar with all of their operations, but I can look into it.
Anybody else? Motion.
Seifert moves that the planning commission approve the sign plan for Martinizing located at 7979 South Main Street.
Dickman, second.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Bekavich, aye.
BDI.
Guzekowski, aye.
Rowlett.
Seifert, aye.
Just one quick question. The staff recommendation, the address is different than the address at the top. Is the 7979 correct or 7967?
Well, the parcel is 7979 Main Street. The tenant space is 7955. So this is the recommendation, we mentioned the tenant space. But if you look at the overall address, of the whole parcel, it's 7979. So that's why even when you see the sign plan, it was for 7979 and 7978. So when you start seeing these sign plans, you'll see addresses different because they're giving them different addresses for each tenant space.
Chandler, yes.
Okay, we got everybody? All right. Moving on to 4D. It's a review of a proposed sign plan submitted by Katie Scholes, RLO Sign, Inc. for the forward dental commercial tenant portion of the building at 7979 South Main Street, tax key number 813-9053. Do we have a complete roll call on that one?
I believe so. I missed the second. That was the only thing I missed.
I second.
Did you
Yeah, I
second?
seconded.
Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, it
All
did
right.
go all the way through.
All right, just want to make sure. All right, so 4D.
All right, the applicant is proposing to install a total of 4 signs at this tenant space. There will be one wall sign that's installed on the east elevation, which is the entry elevation that I'm showing you on your screen right now. There also will be a blade sign that'll be on that side as well. And to give you a better idea, here's the entry facade. You can see there's a blade sign actually right here where my hand is showing. On the entry, that's the entry facade blade sign, and this one is on the north side. So they have it right on the corner. It's a little tough to might tell from the graphics. As we talked about in the master sign plan, there is only one wall sign per entry facade, or 1 to 2 blade signs on an entry facade. What they are proposing for the wall signs do meet the code for height for 25 inches. However, it does exceed the 35-inch maximum that was identified in the master sign plan with the 42.2 square feet. So there is a little bit of conflict right there. And overall, the square footage will need to be revised to comply with the requirements of the recently approved sign program. So he may have, we could approve a sign tonight that is 35 square feet, 25 inches high, if the plan commission so chooses. Right now, the sign plan is showing a 42.2 square foot sign being proposed. The blade sign will be constructed of white dye bond, which is a hard white plastic material, I believe, and that'll include the business logo. You can see it on the graphic right here. Closer. That's the blade. It does meet the height and design standards for a solid flag sign or blade sign for this proposal. What is being proposed, the total number does not comply with the zoning code. The forward dental wall sign exceeds the square footage that has been, recently reduced to 35 square feet tonight. So the Plan Commission does have the ability to approve tonight one wall sign on the entry facade and one blade sign on the entry facade for this tenant space. And of course, I would have to add that the tenant sign or the wall sign would have to meet the 35-foot square size. And then at that point, the applicant would submit a sign permit showing the reduced signs. As I also mentioned earlier during master plan review, the applicant does have the right to go for a variance. And if, the Plan Commission feels that this larger sign is appropriate for this location, definitely they have the right to grant that variance. So with that said, the staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the wall sign not to exceed 35 feet and a flag sign on the entry facade or the east elevation for Forward Dental located at 7955 South Main Street.
Sign variance or sign appeal, what's the length of time that takes?
1 month.
Okay. Questions?
I guess,
Alderman Bekavich?
it being on a corner, Pete, was there any consideration given, I almost consider the corners to be anchors. Any consideration that we want those anchors to stand out a little more, and that's the difference in the height?
Well, that's why we recommended in the sign plan to include the language that, it have to go before the Plan Commission for a sign appeal. The idea was to make sure that it is suitable, it does make sense, and that that's what the image that we want to show in our development. And try to keep as much with the DTS MUPD guidelines and rules.
But so by, sorry, Dan. So
go
by
ahead.
taking action on this, we're essentially saying meet the guidelines or come back for a variance. It's going to take another month.
Right, because every sign has to have approval from here. So this, by going tonight, they can approve a 35 square foot, 25, or how tall is a sign that they're producing. They could go ahead and go for a sign permit after today and build that sign. Now, if they say, well, we really want a bigger one, we're going to wait another month and go, well, then they can go for the sign appeal for the larger sign. So tonight, we could approve a 35 square foot, 25 inch tall Forward Dental sign, wall sign on the entry facade.
Not to nitpick, but so when you say a month, are you saying a month from the next meeting or the month from, because they wouldn't be able to do it today. They wouldn't be able, they could come in tomorrow.
The deadline for the September 26th, let me look at the calendar here. So September 27th meeting, they would have the deadline of next Tuesday. to apply.
Okay, so they have a week.
They would have a week to be able to fill out the paperwork and go forward with that if they pursued the larger sign.
Okay. Sorry, Dan.
Oh, that was
Commissioner, you done?
Went.
oh well.
Commissioner Dickman and then Commissioner Carrillo.
I just wondered if somebody was here for this item. And how do you feel about, do you really want to go forward with a larger sign, or will you be satisfied accepting what we passed this evening?
Good evening. My name is Scott Filio. I'm with Forward Dental, and I'm not representing the sign company, but the client.
Okay.
Thank you for the time, and we understand that you guys are going through some understanding of the whole plaza, and things are kind of in flux. We were hoping to open the business within the next month, so the time frame is tight for us to make the adjustments on signage. We understand that the adjustment is would be a reduction slightly, and I think that we'd like to be able to go with the larger sign that we already have. I don't know if we can make an adjustment to the sign itself. Portions of it already have been produced to meet the timeline.
I think you answered that because it's already in process of being built, is what you're saying, the sign.
Yes, it's pretty much done.
I would suggest if you're gonna appeal, maybe you apply, get a temporary banner, hang it up on the facade until the appeal's done.
Yeah, we do allow businesses to put up a temporary sign prior to them coming. I mean, they could put a a window, a coming soon window similar to Bel Air up on the glass till they were able to get a wall sign that would accommodate their needs.
It's a way to handle it, yeah.
Commissioner Curlow?
If we can refer to the east elevation, a little drawing that shows. Okay, right there. Am I seeing that the red circle part of the logo is past their area?
No, they have multiple tenant space over there.
Okay, so they keep going even
Yeah.
though there's two doors?
Mhm.
Okay, and then around the other side as well, is it all theirs on the north elevation? Goes all the way to the end? Okay.
And then there's actually some on the, I think it's the west side, the parking lot, which isn't shown in these renderings. So it's the rear of our space.
And the rear does have a flag?
No.
And
drawn
it
in
does
here?
not, in this drawing, this was from the original rendering.
Okay.
It showed the possibility of a flag sign. That was under the assumption that there would be another entrance on that west side. Because you can always have a flag sign on all entry sides.
I would think if you're parking that would be an important one, but.
I don't, at this point, they're only asking for the two blade signs on the corner, the north and east elevation, and then as well as the wall sign. That's what they're asking for at this time.
Okay.
I believe in the future, there'll be additional signage regarding vinyl clings in the future that they'll come before this commission.
I'm sorry, did you give your address?
I'm 27 Court Street.
Thank you. Mr. Chandler?
So the request by the applicant includes 2 wall signs, is that correct?
Correct.
However, you've agreed to only the 1 wall sign at the entryway?
I don't believe I agreed to that.
No, they didn't agree to it, but by code, we only allow one wall sign per entry facade. Non-entry facades do not get wall signs. So they would ideally would like to have the 2 wall and the two blade. Unfortunately, that doesn't comply with sign code. Granted tonight, because the way DTS is designed, that any signage in this development requires plan commission review, they need to come for approval. So they can, tonight, the most the plan commission can approve is the 1 wall sign and the 1 blade sign. Now, at the time of the writing of this report, the 42.2 square feet would have been acceptable because of the extra tenant space. So there really wasn't a conflict, because if you would have not accepted that 35 square foot cap as presented by the applicant, that would not be an issue at this point. So it's kind of unfortunate that that it's the own rules by the landlord has now unintentionally created a hardship with this proposal.
Else on this side? We're gonna be sweating this on every one of
It's
them.
gonna be until, ideally, now that we have the master plan in place, we have the DTS, we are on the same page as the landlord. If you recall the last meeting, I mentioned that the landlord was handing out cut sheets that it was like an original draft of the zoning code, and was handing that to the sign company saying, "Oh, these are the rules." That wasn't the rules. So it's going to get better. We're going to have the sign plan. We're going to have the applicants know prior to signing future leases that these are the rules. Like you said, Dan, we had a blank building. We had the rules in DTS. We didn't know exactly what impacts it were going to have. Well, now we are working on creating a sign plan. We're working with tenants. There's still like 4 more tenant spaces that need to come forward before here. This is the new playbook. It should make it easier in the future.
All right, so we can give them approval on a slightly smaller version of the sign, or if the applicant so chooses, they can go for the variance or appeal to get the larger version.
Correct.
And in the meantime, because I know you guys are in a race to get open,
Yes.
which is what, 3 weeks?
Yeah, middle of next month.
Yeah, so you can do some temporary signage things. Sounds like the way we gotta go.
And Pete, you can issue the temporary sign.
Yes, and then
Just
I
a
also
year.
have the ability to have a temporary, 14-day temporary use as well. So we do have some flexibility as to provide some temporary signage in the meantime while the sign is being either manufactured, or if it is already manufactured, come before the board or the commission for a variance request.
Just to continue with some dialogue and some questions, I guess, going along.
Name and address first, though.
Matt Meering with Anderson Ashton, 2746 South 166th Street in New Berlin. With what we were talking about with the height changes and going through the master plan for the whole development with 25 inches as a height, our issue with the building signage is in essence the length. And I believe you were addressing, we have 2 units side by side in an end cap corner going into the development itself, so you have the shrunk corner in the presence of that. So it's not like we're overlapping the next neighboring unit. So, and if we have to go to a variance to get that extra square footage, or like in essence the length, so it's not 50-inch tall letters, it's the length. Is the planning commission open to that on a corner lot? I would never say, is this a waste of time, or is there a dialogue that we can ask?
Yeah, I'll be
questions?
honest, I'm in favor of it already, and it hasn't even presented to me.
Okay,
No brainer to me, but
okay, we agree. So I just want to make sure that,
that's just me.
okay.
Unless somebody else wants to nod affirmation, nod their affirmation.
Unfortunately, it's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Come back.
All right, so,
Understand, just wanted to ask the question.
yeah.
Thank you.
Good question. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Another question about the blade signs. So why 2 in the same space? Can you give a little more information?
The blade signs on the two facades, I believe because of the 2 streets that intersect, so when the clientele would come from the back parking lot. So there's
The
one
whole
on
idea
Main
of a
Street.
blade sign is to capture the walking.
Correct.
They can see it either direction.
I think that helps the customers locate the space.
That's kind of a unique thing for Oak Creek. We don't really have that anywhere else. We do have it here. We will have it here. All right, anybody else? All right, let's make a motion on 4D.
The Dickman makes a motion, the plan commission approve the wall sign and flag sign on the entry facade on the east elevation for Forward Dental located at 7955 South Main Street.
You got to change
In the
dimensions.
spirit of Carrie Papelbon, I'd like to make a correction to the recommendation.
Not to exceed.
35.
Not to, if you could just say that the plan commission approved the wall sign not to exceed 35 square feet
Oh, I thought that
and the
was-
flag sign on the entry facade.
Okay,
Just
I
say so
agree.
noted.
so noted.
Terrell seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Speedy eye.
Guzekowski, aye. Terrell, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
All right, gentlemen. I look forward to your opening.
Commission and Mayor.
All right, 4E is a sign plan review of a proposed sign plan submitted by Root Salon for the Root Salon commercial tenant portion of the building at 7979 South Main Street. Tax key number 813-9053.
Okay, I'll give a little background information. This applicant is looking for 1 wall sign on the entry facade, which is in compliance with our master plan and our DTS MUPD. And however, we talked about the 25.5 inch.
I always say that it's in compliance, then you say however.
I mentioned the part that was in compliance. Joking aside, we talked about the maximum height. The applicant is looking for a 30-inch tall sign. And as we explained about the 15% of the wall height comes out to 25.2 inch height, that is still going to be the bar in which needs to be met. Now, we
Before you
did,
go any further,
yeah.
so I'm hoping, I guess I'm assuming, that you guys have done an architectural study that shows for this dimension and size of building, that sign.
Yes, there was quite a bit of length of discussion
All right.
on what would be appropriate, and there was a stressing about the consistency of what's on that band. If you been by, you see Bel Air, it has a balance between signage and the border above and below, trying to maintain that so we don't have signage touching the white brick and touching the glass below. The idea was to have a little bit of buffer, and a lot of time was taken to come to that decision.
Good, okay.
So once again, you know, a sign appeal would be required in order to have that 30-inch tall sign be approved tonight. Well, to be approved, not that it could be approved tonight as proposed. Overall, the sign is 17.5 square feet, which is in compliance with the 35 square foot area. So the size does meet. It is made out of channel lettering, you know, mounted a raceway that'll match the building facade, which is within accordance with the zoning district. It'll be illuminated with white LEDs, and it'll be a white LED sign. And for the people in the audience, I should bring up the graphic so you can see what it is I am describing. I apologize for that. So here's what is being proposed. So based on the DTS development plan, and as well as the master plan that has been done, that a sign variance would be required in order to approve a 2-foot 6-inch tall wall sign. Because of it not being compliant, staff recommends that the Plan Commission not approve the sign as presented for Roots located at 7959 South Main Street.
So are they in the same boat? They want to open, they want to have the sign they want, they will have no sign ready for the opening.
Correct. You know, the commission could do what they did with the previous applicant and, you know, approve a wall sign or a 25.2-inch tall wall sign as presented. And, you know, they could then go forward with sign permits. That is an option this commission could go forward. So at least that way they get the approval for the sign, as long as it meets that 25.2-inch height requirement. And if they want to go for a sign appeal, they can definitely do that. And then we'd meet again next month and have the same conversation. Determine whether or not, as you see on your screen, if that is an appropriate height.
Do we have a representative?
Hear from,
Name and address for the record.
Bob Kraus, I'm with Bauer Sign Company, 2500 South 170th Street, New Berlin.
This sign currently under construction?
Yes. We had done some preliminary work on the site as well to do some pre-wiring. It's another question I have as far as the method of attachment as well for the development. So yeah, we're in construction phase and have done some work on the building already to accept this size sign. We're, as Pete had alluded to earlier, the tenants were given certain parameters in their lease agreements. Legalities of all that from that standpoint, but they have some lease agreements that were written in at the sizes that we proposed here.
That's caused our heartburn, or their heartburn. Commissioner Carrillo.
I really think that the height, I know that we're talking about the height and length as we always do, but the height is super important so that it doesn't look crowded to the top and bottom. If you guys are saying 25 is a good number and it should stay that way, to me, I would be more willing to let you go length than height. I think that's super important to make that, to make it look like it's balanced. So whether I understand this is their logo, but whether the salon needs to go to the side of it so that you can have the roots as big, bigger. I really think that that's important to look like there's a good baseline on the side of that building, that there's the same amount of space between the top and bottom as, and centered on that area. I think that would make or break it, not the length as much visually.
Commissioner Carrillo.
I think we're going to hear a couple of these, and we're in a position that we either compromise where we don't feel we should be going or delay the business. The landlord's not here. The landlord allegedly is who gave some misinformation. That's their legalities to work out damages, problems, issues, or whatever. I agree with Commissioner Carrillo that to compromise at this point, as unfortunate it is for the tenants, is not the right thing to do.
I can't disagree with that. I mean, Blair didn't help anybody out by doing what he did.
Exactly. I mean, in some of the calculations and size restrictions and things like that are very unusual for the development. You know, signage, it's kind of self-serving for us to have the discussion on size of signage and such, but it's very integral to successfulness of a business is signage, especially in a tight development like you have there. So to say my piece, I think your signage requirements and restrictions that they've agreed to or put in place here are very limiting for sort of the long-term success of some of these businesses. You know, we certainly can build signs to whatever standards are there. I'm not just like the board to understand. You know, you're setting a standard at the 25.2 inches based upon subjective number that may or may not be proper.
It's not really subjective, it's based on the brick width.
No, I understand that. I mean, we work within sign bans in every city. It's the only municipality I've ever had that has done a 15% number based on the height of a wall and some unusual number that's.
Do you understand we're trying to make it look as nice and as
No,
attractive
totally
as
understand
possible? Even, you know, letting businesses use their logos instead of just channel letters, you know, things like that.
Sure. No, like I say, I totally understand what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with the effect you're trying to achieve here. I'm just trying to, you know, straighten that, because everybody that's come before you is all addressing the same mentality of trying to get maximum exposure for
Well, it's
the
a
business.
problem we didn't cause.
But it sounds like some industry standard assumptions were made and passed.
Yes.
Correct? I mean, you.
No, I don't, you know, I'm just talking in generalities of the development and people coming to you and the success of the businesses in them. I'm not distinctively talking about this particular sign, but just listening to every tenant that's come up today.
Yeah,
running
I don't
into
like
that
it at
sign.
all. I mean, I don't want to be known as someone that throws roadblocks at a business, but at some point we got to have standards, and especially when we're talking about a limited space. I hear what you're saying. I understand what Blair's trying to do with the timeline, but we still have to adhere to the standards. So really the proposal is to approve at a approved height,
Right.
and then the sign would have to be appealed. The height would have to be appealed.
Right, the height would be appealed. And as the master plan that was adopted earlier, there was a paragraph, a subsection that said that if larger than 25, that the landlord would be accepting of 28 or up to 32. And we talked about, you know, giving variances, you know, what would be that limit? 30, you know, that would be 28 or 32. And I believe the 32 inch was specifically only for one letter, could be that tall, and then the rest would have to be smaller. There is wiggle room in the sign plan. That's why we recommended the plan as we did, so that way we would provide that. So again, you could do similar to the previous applicant, approve a 25.2 inch sign tonight, and if he wants to come back with a variance, that'd be up to the applicant's choice. And we would have that discussion and debate if this is acceptable, and we could, you know, the comments that you mentioned tonight about our standard, you know, creating that sense of balance, would that, you know, sway the decision of the commission for a variance?
Commissioner Corral.
So if I understand this right, and I really did as we went through before, because we have a standard, and then we're giving you but if you want to talk about, you know, the speed limit is 55, but you can go 65. I'm kind of confused. And this proposal was for 30. That's a Wally's always on his phone. This proposal was for 30, which would fit into Pete to the wiggle room, if we ever got to the wiggle room. Yeah, timing-wise, the way we're structured, we're not to the wiggle room, or their sign would be fine, which is now under construction, and Blair's not here tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of a perfect storm and screwing this thing up is where we're at,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And I don't know, it's subjective, 30, 25, I respect everyone's opinion. I don't know the answer, but we can't make a decision anyway where we stand right here to change that. Correct?
Understood.
I appreciate your
No, I
input.
do. I just want to make sure.
Like I say, the ambiguity of having a standard and then wiggle room.
Yeah, well, we've always had that with the.
I mean, every place you have for variances.
But it was
I mean,
variance,
that's-
it was a standard and then variance. Now we're saying it's a standard, you get variance, but only up to this.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
Standard with benefits.
Yeah.
The other question I'd have, just for clarification, is a method of attachment, whether it's a raceway or direct mount letters on the building. We had proposed for the center here, again, depends on centers of how letters are affixed to a building.
believe it was Raceway because they were trying to limit penetrations to the building.
Yeah, they approved direct mounts for us. We've already pre-drilled things of that nature. So, I mean, there is no, in the initial 60-some page documentation I went through, there was a lot of terminology about uniqueness of signage for the success of the development and kind of bringing it back the other way of that. So I just, we can do it either way. It's just a matter of
That's my understanding.
the often in new developments, especially with drive-in surfaces, things like that. But now with new LEDs, they don't have as much large penetrations like PK housing, like the old neon days, so you're not marring the surface like you once did. So usually they don't identify that from a code standpoint, but the development's calling for raceways at this point.
We allow both. I mean, if you want to go, direct mount, that's fine. I mean, those were examples that were in the DTS zoning, trying to show a unique design. I mean, but raceway would be acceptable as long as it matched the building facade.
If I were you, I'd have a conversation with Blair or a representative of Wired.
Yeah,
'cause
like I say, they approved it with direct mounts. It's pre-wired, pre-drilled accordingly. It's just some of the conversation we've heard since with other proposals that they were required to be raceways.
That's what
I'm
I
looking for
understood from our last
clarification.
meeting on a different tenant,
So we
so,
all understand.
so we're just as confused as you are.
I don't think we care. That was a landlord.
Yeah, because again, he was trying
I don't know
to,
how the master sign plan is written, if that's actually verbiage in there of that. I'm just looking for clarification for long-term. Usually it's not a deal breaker one way or the other for most people. Most landlords in larger developments like you're putting on here, lifestyle centers, are looking for permanency and looking for direct mounts so that they don't have a box looking at this come off a wall. So it's an aesthetic value. I understand the long-term ramifications of tenants coming and going, but
Right.
that's the whole idea of having quality signage to keep them viable.
yep. All right, what does the plan commission want to do?
I guess I would suggest just keep the ball rolling, give them the 25.2 wall sign as per the plan we just approved, and let them
Or produce it at 25.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing we do is approve it at the. I think that's what we should move,
25.2.
Mayor.
Yeah,
Right.
at least you'd have that.
Kinda
Also make a
kick it
note
back.
that anything to do with signage in those buildings, the applicant or applicant's rep needs to be here.
Yes, we do. We notify that of every applicant who submits that a representative should be present. Otherwise, there is the good possibility that the item will be held until the next meeting until
Yeah,
a representative comes. So they are made aware that that is a possible consequence of not having a representative at a meeting.
But they'd have to come back in 30 days, just like the last person,
Yes.
if they want to.
Yep. They need to submit by August 30th. We'd get them on the September 27th meeting. And then we would have the discussion of whether the 30-inch is an appropriate size sign for this location.
With the understanding that the tenant can actually apply for a temporary sign in the interim.
Yes.
Well, someone want to make that motion?
Charles can make a motion that the commission approve the sign plan at a maximum height of 25.2 inches for routes located at 7959 South Main Street.
Kuzikowski will second.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
David Chai.
Speedy, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Raleigh.
Seibert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Go ahead.
Clarification on that as well. At staff level, you're able to approve the next submission at a 25.2? I don't have to come
Yes.
back to another
No,
meeting
no.
here,
If
so
if
that-
you were to submit a sign permit application with a 25.2-inch tall root sign that doesn't exceed the 35 square feet in area, we can approve it at staff level.
And then taking the thought process of putting things on one horizontal plane of signage, would we have to come back for another meeting if we put that on one line at 25.2 maximum height and still within the 35 square foot restriction?
That would be up to the plan commission's discretion. If
Well, I have to
if
come
you'd
back
want the
if I
applicant to
took-
come back,
So you'd lengthen it, you're saying?
Yeah,
To give it some more impact at that
Yeah,
point,
you'd
it would give them an
you'd shrink it
opportunity to
As
do
long
something.
as you're within that square footage.
yeah, if he meets,
Yeah.
In my
so go
opinion,
ahead.
you're fine.
Yeah, me too.
yeah, he meets those parameters.
Thank you.
Yeah, just work with staff and work with Blair. Thanks a lot. All right, final item tonight is item 4F. It's a conditional use permit request submitted by the City of Oak Creek and the Water Senior Living for a conditional use permit for housing for the elderly on the property at 8,000 South Market Street, tax key number 813-9065.
All right, let me just bring up the location map. The applicant is requesting the Plan Commission recommend approval of a conditional use permit that would allow housing for the elderly to be developed on the property at 8,000 South Market Street. As you may know, this was the property to the west of City Hall, between Meyer and City Hall. It was used, intended for potential future city development. It has been sold to the Water Senior Living Group. They look to operate a senior housing facility up to 140 units and includes also a memory care, and this would be part of a 4-story building. This is consistent with the city's adopted comprehensive plan and complements the mixed use that is already occurring at this site. It is recommended for approval. Staff would prepare conditions and restrictions for review for the commission at the next meeting, where detailed site and building plans would be reviewed at the commission at a later date. Therefore, staff does recommend that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit allowing for the development of a senior housing at 8,000 South Market Street after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the commission's review at their next meeting.
Questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Chandler.
I have a question for the applicant.
I don't believe there is a applicant here.
Okay. Can you provide a little more information about the location? I'm trying to figure out where this is.
Right here.
Right behind us?
Next to Meyer, between Meyer and the City Hall building.
Oh, okay. And then also details about the facility. I know some of the information is here about 140 units, but height of the building.
Well, the height of the building and that would be part of the building and site plan review process. For tonight, the discussion is whether or not a elderly housing facility is a suitable site for this location. Staff believes that, we do have apartments, we have commercial. The purpose of this development is mixed use, so that this type of use would be a suitable location or, use at this location. In the DTS MUPDD, just to say it for the 50th time tonight, allows multifamily as a permitted use, but for whatever reason, in the permitted and conditional uses, it specifies elderly housing as a conditional use. So it's kind of a quirk. We were a little bit surprised at staff level that that's how it was written, but as a result, this process has to go through now as a conditional use.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Dickman.
I did look on the internet at the site. I don't know if you put it in there or if Kerry did, about the waterseniorliving.com.
Oh, yes, yep.
And so I had all kinds of questions, but I think based on it, this is just a conditional use. Should there be one there or not, I'll hold my questions until we come up with the site and building plan.
If no other questions, or Mr. Degner?
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. This is sounds like a good proposal, except that I'm afraid a 4-story building will hide our big civic center from the view of the Myers and anyone from that direction. So I would very cautiously accept that condition of 4 stories. I think the airplane plan would allow 40 feet, so maybe that's what they're doing then. And here we have built this civic center, and to have it hidden from view?
I think the idea of the design of Drexel Town Square is that the Civic Center is visible once when you're in the public square, but also down Main Street from Drexel, and it's not to hide it, and that's why it's the tallest point in the development. Questions? Motion.
Tipton makes a motion, the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit allowing for the development of senior housing at 8,000 South Market Street after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the commission's review at their next meeting.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Davich, aye.
BDI.
Guzekowski, aye.
Burrell, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 7:26.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Davich, aye.
BDS.
Guzekowski, aye.
Burrell, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. See you in 2 weeks.